quiet hum of the house settled around them, a palpable silence after the flurry of goodbyes. Laura returned to the living room, a subtle shift in her posture, a newfound stillness that mirrored the deepening twilight outside. The last rays of the afternoon sun, softened to a honeyed gold, slanted across the plush rug, painting the air with a hazy glow. She didn't sit in the armchair opposite his, but instead chose the far end of the long sofa, leaving a vast, silent expanse between them. Jeff watched her, a knot tightening in his chest. She was no longer the little girl he'd bounced on his knee, but a woman on the cusp, her eyes holding a depth he hadn't noticed before, a hint of something wistful and knowing. "So," he began, his voice a little rougher than he intended, "your dad said you had a busy week." He gestured vaguely to the sofa beside him. "Come, sit closer, Laura. We can barely hear each other from across the room." A faint blush touched her cheeks as she slowly, gracefully, moved to the cushion nearer to him. The air crackled with a delicate tension, a current of unspoken awareness that seemed to gather in the space she had just traversed. She smoothed the skirt of her dress, her fingers tracing the silken fabric with an almost nervous energy. "It was eventful," she finally murmured, her gaze meeting his, then darting away to the window, where shadows were beginning to stretch long and thin. "Just the usual, school, planning for after graduation. It all feels so big, so uncertain." He leaned forward slightly, drawn in by the vulnerability in her tone. "Uncertainty can be exciting, you know, a blank canvas." He paused, a different kind of question forming on his lips. "Is that what brought you here this weekend, Laura? A need for a different kind of canvas?" Her eyes, the color of a summer sky, found his again, wide and searching. The silence stretched, filled with the unspoken weight of what lay beneath his words. She knew, perhaps, that he saw more than just his friend's daughter. He saw the woman she was becoming, the woman who stirred something long dormant within him. "Maybe," she whispered, her voice barely audible, raw with an emotion he couldn't quite decipher. "Maybe I just needed to be somewhere where things feel understood, where I feel seen." Her gaze held his, a silent plea, a hesitant invitation. The golden light faded, leaving them suspended in the deepening twilight, the world outside forgotten, only the two of them and the breathtaking, dangerous space between. Her cheeks flushed. "Well, the words seemed to catch in her throat, lost somewhere between the thrumming silence of the room and the sudden, overwhelming awareness of his gaze. Jeff watched her, his expression a careful blend of patience and a deep, unreadable intensity that made her breath hitch. The fire in the hearth cast dancing shadows across the rich tapestry of the rug, painting their faces in warm, shifting hues. Outside, the night was a velvet cloak, insulating them in their own private world. He shifted, the soft rustle of his jacket the only sound, and reached out, his hand hovering for a moment before settling gently over hers where it rested on the plush velvet of the sofa cushion. His touch was warm, reassuring, a silent question. A tremor ran through her, subtle but profound. "Laura," he said, his voice a low, resonant rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very air between them. "What is it you're truly trying to say?" She looked up, her eyes, wide and luminous, meeting his. The unspoken hung heavy, a shimmering curtain of longing and uncertainty. The air crackled with it, a tangible thing. This connection, this magnetic pull that had been growing between them for weeks, now felt too potent to ignore, too fragile to break. It's just so much," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible, raw with an emotion she couldn't quite name. "Everything feels different when you're here." Her thumb unconsciously traced the line of his knuckles, a small, tentative gesture that spoke volumes. The scent of his cologne, a subtle blend of sandalwood and something uniquely him, filled her senses, intoxicating and familiar. Jeff's thumb stroked the back of her hand, a feather-light touch that sent shivers down her arm. Different good or different unsettling. His eyes held hers, searching, vulnerable. He was giving her space, yet drawing her closer with an invisible thread of understanding. A soft sigh escaped her lips. Different electric, she admitted, the word a confession, a dare. The truth, finally spoken, felt like a dam breaking. It's like the world fades away and there's only this. She gestured vaguely between them, towards the space charged with unspoken desires. A slow, tender smile touched his lips, reaching his eyes, banishing the last trace of guardedness. I feel it too, Laura. More than you know. This is something I've waited for without even realizing it. He leaned closer, the warmth of his body radiating, the scent of him enveloping her completely. The world outside truly did recede, leaving only the soft glow of the fire, the quiet hum of their hearts, and the powerful, intoxicating promise of what lay ahead, just on the cusp of being claimed. His gaze dropped to her lips, a silent question hanging in the charged air, a breathless invitation. He stood under the relentless spray, letting the water hammer against his skull, a futile attempt to drown out the cacophony in his mind. Steam billowed, blurring the edges of the tiled room, much like the lines of right and wrong had blurred in his recent memory. Each drop that coursed down his face felt like a tear, though his own eyes remained dry, too numb for outward expression. He scrubbed at his arms, his chest, as if the stain of his actions was a physical grime that could be scoured away. But the guilt was a phantom ache, lodged deep within his ribs. How could I have been so foolish, so utterly blind? The questions swirled with the rising steam, unanswerable, leaving him adrift in a sea of self-reproach. He longed for the water to carry away the crushing weight of his choices, to leave him empty, clean, and perhaps, finally, at peace. But it only seemed to cling, a cold reminder of what he had done. Jeff lay beside her, the soft glow of the city lights painting muted patterns on the ceiling. Laura's head rested on his shoulder, her breath a gentle rhythm against his skin. He should feel exhilarated, triumphant even, but a cold knot of something akin to shame coiled in his gut. His wife's face, fleeting and unwelcome, flickered behind his eyelids. He shifted almost imperceptibly, a silent battle waging within. Laura stirred, her fingers tracing a light path over his chest. "What are you thinking, Mr. Peters?" Her voice was a low murmur, a silken thread in the quiet room. He hesitated, the words catching in his throat. Just a lot. He couldn't meet her eyes, staring instead at the curtain. Is it her? The question, though soft, held an edge of knowing. He sighed, the sound heavy. It's complicated, Laura, this us. She propped herself up on an elbow, her gaze intense, searching. Complicated how? Because you're married, or because you feel something you didn't expect to feel. Her thumb brushed his jawline, a feather-light touch that sent a shiver through him. Because I feel it too, Jeff. This isn't just a game for me. His heart hammered a frantic drum against his ribs. The honesty in her eyes, the raw vulnerability, was disarming. He reached out, his hand finding hers, intertwining their fingers. The warmth of her skin was a stark contrast to the icy dread in his soul. I know, he whispered, his voice thick with unconfessed emotion. I know. The unspoken hung heavy between them, the dangerous, undeniable pull that threatened to unravel everything he thought he knew. I decided to embrace the moment, allowing our connection to deepen. I held her close, bodies pressed together, seeking profound intimacy. I conveyed my affection and the intensity of our bond. Her muscles, initially hesitant, gradually yielded, allowing us to intertwine. Suddenly, Laura gasped, a shiver of profound emotion. Ag. What's going on, baby? I asked, my voice soft, stopping. She looked into my eyes, her gaze wide with wonder. I think I just felt something incredible. I gave her a tender kiss and gently separated. I never knew such a feeling was possible, she murmured, resting, a soft smile. Don't think this night is over yet, I playfully teased, suggesting more shared moments. A flicker of concern crossed her face. We should be careful, Mr. Peters, she whispered. I wouldn't want to risk discomfort. You're right, Laura, I agreed, thoughtfully. Perhaps we can find another way to share this moment, equally intimate and fulfilling, focusing on closeness and tender affection. A quiet understanding passed. Settling back against pillows my wife bought, Laura's touch became a gentle caress, exploring our connection, her fingers tracing patterns. There's a faint, earthy scent, she murmured, leaning in slightly, a delicate wrinkle on her nose. It will fade as we draw closer, becoming part of our shared warmth, I responded, my voice low. She leaned in, eyes closing as closeness deepened. A moment later, she pulled back, a soft, surprised laugh escaping. Her wide emerald eyes sparkled. That was unexpectedly intense, she exclaimed. Let's explore every facet of this connection, every shared sensation, I whispered, drawing her nearer. With a tender touch, she drew me closer, her soft hair brushing my skin like a silken whisper. Intimacy intensified, a profound sense of surrender and connection washing over me as her gentle caresses deepened our bond. A wave of intense emotion surged through me, a powerful culmination of our shared feelings. Laura, I breathed, my voice thick with feeling, let's share this fully. Laura met my gaze, a silent understanding passing as the moment reached its peak, a profound release, a shared culmination of passion. She lingered, her eyes conveying acknowledgement of our deep connection before a gentle sigh of contentment. We drifted into a peaceful sleep, intertwined in the aftermath of our profound connection, only to awaken hours later to rekindle our affection, sharing tender moments throughout the night and into the early morning. We didn't talk much as I drove her home the next day, a comfortable silence hanging between us. I walked her across the family lawn and knocked on the door. Mark answered with Bate, who was standing there beside him, her suitcase packed and ready to go, a hint of anticipation. Hi, Bate, did you have a good time? I asked my daughter, my voice gentle. Yes, Daddy, she answered, her voice soft. How did she do, Mark? I inquired casually. Well, Mark answered thoughtfully, she had an asterisk experience asterisk. She enjoyed some aspects, finding new interests, but wasn't always cooperative with routines. She found activities challenging, struggling to adapt. It seemed like a lot for her, a period of adjustment. That's too bad, I said, a note of genuine concern. I imagine there were moments of intense connection and understanding, though, despite the challenges. There were intense moments of interaction, Mark acknowledged, his brow furrowed, but also resistance to guidance. She seemed to hold back, perhaps overwhelmed by newness or needing more time to process. I'm hopeful with more time and understanding, she'll become comfortable and open to these developmental experiences. Bate remained silent, her gaze distant, and I was relieved Mark was willing to continue guiding her through these formative experiences. And some practicalities were difficult, Mark added, a hint of exasperation, like ensuring her personal routines. Perhaps a more consistent approach to her daily habits would be beneficial for her well-being. Not a bad idea, I agreed, offering Bate a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Well, Mark, Laura was truly wonderful. What a thoughtful, kind, and beautiful daughter you have. We spent the afternoon and evening in deep conversation and shared experiences, enjoying each other's company, continuing discussions well into the next day. But I'm sorry to say there was one small concern. I told Laura to walk 10 paces in a straight line, observing her closely. When she tried, Mark noticed her movements were a little stiff, and her posture seemed slightly off, her steps a bit wider than usual, as if she was still processing the intensity and emotional weight of the previous day's events, needing a moment to regain her composure. Bait giggled. Wow, Daddy, you really wore her out. Now, Bait, it's just a little fatigue from all the activity, Mark observed. I'm sure she'll be fine in a few days, I told him, smiling. She better, Mark retorted. I'm hoping she can join Brian Towton's daughter for the charity bake sale next Saturday, so she needs to be ready to help out. Laura offered a meek smile, perhaps a little overwhelmed by the busy social schedule. I felt a pang of concern, hoping she wouldn't feel pressured by her commitments. Thanking them both, I took Bates' hand and walked to the car. Next Saturday, you'll be helping Mr. Henderson with the school's robotics club. You won't mind assisting your math teacher, right? No, Daddy, I'm looking forward to it, Bates said, opening the passenger door. His sons might be helping too, so expect a full team for the project, I explained, getting behind the wheel. In exchange, he's letting me take his daughter Carly to help with the community garden. She's really enthusiastic and organized, Daddy, Bates said, buckling up. I'm sure you'll find her quite capable. I'm sure I will too, baby, I agreed, giving my daughter a warm kiss on the cheek before driving off for home.